On the agenda tonight, we're going to be having a look at Lauren Paley, and she's going to be singing Hide and Seek. Hello, Phil here from Wings of Pegasus, and welcome to another analysis video. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. So, tonight's video is a bit of an investigation one because I was sent this with somebody asking whether the vocal here's been pitch corrected or not. And this is somebody that I hadn't heard of before. And Lauren is somebody who had a video that went viral on TikTok, I think, and then maybe on YouTube as well. So she's singing in a stairwell, and the person wanted to know with the request whether it has been altered or whether this was actually her voice. Before I get the pitch monitoring software on screen, we're going to listen to it the whole way through, and you guys watching this video can decide whether you think it's pitch corrected or not, and then I'll give you the answer at the end and we'll go through it and analyse as we normally do. So let's have a listen and see how Lauren gets on. And there we have it. So, I mean, first of all, what an acoustic space this is. This particular stairwell, we can see that it's concrete and it goes down quite a way. And when I'm talking about the acoustic space, the natural reverberation that we get, and it's an interesting point to make about videos that I've spoken about in the past and people that have commented on vocal analysis videos that we've done, where the person's had a lot of reverb on their voice and they say, oh, that's cheating using reverb. And I then addressed that in a video saying that if you were singing in a cave, somebody wouldn't then come along and say, oh, no, you're not allowed to sing in here because there's reverb. So that's cheating kind of thing. So exactly the same example here, that Lauren is just in a space and the sound waves are just bouncing off these solid surfaces and therefore not getting absorbed, which is the opposite to what you have in the studio, where you have lots of foam on the walls and things like that that absorb the sound, and therefore you get a dry sound, which is something that sounds more dead. And when you have a sound that's got reverb on it in the studio and you have effects added to your voice, for example, that's called a wet sound. So this is definitely the latter. But anyway, back to the point of pitch correction, because this is where you have to decide whether you think that this vocal performance has been pitch corrected or not. And when we do take into consideration the acoustic space and the reverb, if you were to pitch correct this, it wouldn't affect the sound, because all that would happen is that the reverb would be, I mean, it's not something that you attribute pitch to other than the note. It's the note that is reverberating here in the space. So if you were to change the pitch of that note, then it wouldn't affect the overall sound. You wouldn't then suddenly have a reverb that sounded really weird. So it would be possible to pitch correct this. Let's have a listen and look at the vocal lines on the right hand side. And if you haven't seen one of these videos before, Lauren's voice is now going to be a yellow line on the screen, and this is pitch. And I have calibrated this to 446 Hertz tuning because that's where Lauren is singing, but I don't want to give anything away. Let's have a listen. So I'm just going to jump in here because, I mean, the first thing to say is that it's not pitch corrected. And I know that a lot of people watching this will think, oh, but look at this, you know, it's pretty much on the line there. And then as we go back, as we actually started out, you know, I mean, technically we're a little bit sharp here, but then we're dead on the C sharp 4. And I mean, it's good because it backs up what I say about great singers, that they do have the ability to hit the lines. And in this particular case, because of the reverb, it means that once the note has finished, the reverb continues the note on that pitch. So we get this kind of look to it where it could look like, oh, this is, you know, pitch corrected, if not auto-tuned. But as we go through, I mean, we've got this instant contradiction of being between the F sharp 4 and the G4 with pitch. So, like I say, great voices can hit lines, but not time after time after time after time. It's just dotted throughout performances. And, you know, that is also the case here as we go up to the C5. But something to mention about Lauren's voice, she is really accurate pitch-wise. Her intervals are just spot on, considering that she's singing here without any reference really to key. So this brings up why I have calibrated the pitch monitoring software to 446 Hertz tuning rather than 440 Hertz, because Lauren doesn't have a reference point here. So she's just singing. And when that happens, unless you've got, you know, perfect pitch, you're going to be singing wherever you're singing, and more often than not, that can be between notes, but you are consistently between notes. When I say about her intervals being spot on, it meant that she was singing between notes perfectly. I mean, I say perfectly, but like a great voice does. So by moving these lines to 446 hertz, at least it gives us a better representation of her intervals with these lines. This is the other thing about Lauren's voice, is it sounds absolutely spot on for the whole performance. And I don't think that you would ever question any of these notes. It's only when you look at it in this kind of detail that you start to see that great voices never hit the lines all the time, which is why pitch correction and auto-tune really do stand out so much. Because without looking at this, you would assume that her voice is just really accurate on the lines pretty much all the time. And some people might have thought that this was pitch corrected. But then when we look at it in detail, you can see that, yeah, the G-sharp 4 here, I mean, if I was to really zoom in on this and get it to the appropriate point, you'll see that this is actually flat of the line, but the further out we are, the more on the line it looks. So you start to see that, oh yeah, actually we're not on the lines at all. With a pitch corrected vocal and especially an auto-tune vocal, when you zoom in, it doesn't move from the line because that's what it's been set to. So when you're looking at a natural voice, and we're looking at it in detail here, but when you zoom in, you can see that she's it sounds stupid to say that she's not hitting the notes, because she is. And this is the point about a natural voice. It sounds perfect. I don't think anybody's going to argue about that. When we listened to it the first time through, it sounded perfect, but that's the point. And the notes that the voice is hitting aren't on these lines. The voice isn't calibrated to a particular tuning. So yeah, it just goes where it wants to and where the note is. You know, talking about harmonically and talking about frequencies, the best note isn't always on these lines, but I'll let it play on. We'll keep it zoomed in.
You can keep me waiting, it's already too late.
Again, now look at the way that we're flat here and we're sharp here, but listen to the voice. It doesn't sound like that, which is exactly the point. And this was a video that I was just going to do an investigation into, but I'm realizing now that this is the perfect example of a great singing voice with great range, by the way, but a great singing voice that is clearly not on these lines, but then is sometimes. So if you were trying to pitch correct somebody's voice to sound like this, it would be impossible, because you'd have to try and now intentionally miss particular notes. And this then takes me into the realm of expression. So on some of the notes, Lauren is sharp. And because this is very much a haunting, well, song, but a haunting performance with the reverb in there as well, and the stomping on the steps, when you think about the expression, when we hear a vocalist who sings slightly sharp, it makes the notes stand out a little bit more. It's going to make it, I say more dramatic, but in this case, it's going to make it sound more uneasy, because it's not quite where the note is, but we don't hear it as sharp. We hear it as expression of being eerie and having that expression to it. So when she's flat of the note, that's where it's a little bit more reserved, understated, not as eerie. But this is the point, that with a great vocalist, they'll naturally put expression into their voice, which therefore, it's collateral. Well, I say collateral damage to having expression in your voice. It means you are going to be slightly sharp, slightly flat. But that's a byproduct, is probably a better word. It's a byproduct of having a great voice with expression, that you then miss these lines. So you want to be missing these lines sometimes. And this is a great example of a fantastic voice. It just sounds absolutely pitch perfect, but we can see that it's technically not. I mean, look at this. I mean, we are so flat of the A4. Again, going back to the first time you listened to this through, who thought, oh, when we were listening to it the first time, that A4 was so flat, it was really offensive. Nobody was thinking that, because the note is just what it is. We're listening to the expression, especially when you haven't got any instrumentation and you can focus on the voice. And just looking at this note here, because we are zoomed in, it means that we can see that, yeah, if we just pulled out from this and zoomed out, that you would see this as being on the line, zoomed out. But when you get in close, you can see that it's ever so slightly sharp. I mean, it's great because we see this kind of thing where, you know, we are almost 50 cents sharp of where the note would be. This is a great example that a perfect vocal performance, or should I say, a perfect sounding vocal performance, isn't what happens when you pitch correct a voice. You would never be able to get this kind of performance and this accuracy to the ear with pitch correction, because it just, yeah, starts to sound mechanical. And just a quick word on, yeah, it's great that, look, we can see these down here. And when I said about intervals, of course, Lauren has to keep the same key, or at least the same point of reference for her starting pitch the whole way through. And this is something that, especially when we're talking about, hit 3 or 4 minutes? This was actually a longer performance than I initially thought. But it means that she's got to keep that relevance to her starting pitch throughout the whole performance, and it is natural to drift off ever so slightly, and because there's no instrumentation, it means that she can almost take you on a journey of pitch without you realizing. You know, here throughout the performance, she's pretty much relevant to a 446 the whole way through, which is just mightily impressive from that interval standpoint. But yeah, just her vocal technique and the way that she accesses these notes in her head voice, but then when she comes down into her chest voice register, she's keeping it really light and really has a light but piercing sound in her head voice. She's getting a really clean vocal cord connection, and it's almost like all she's doing is just placing her vocal cords in position for the note and then just blowing that air through it perfectly, you know, at a perfect rate of speed in order to get those head voice notes to come out and just, you know, resonate perfectly. But we'll listen on.
Hurry up and run.
It's that kind of hurry up and run. You know, she's kind of keeping it really light, having a bit of air in there, but then because she ascends into her head voice and she's not getting heavy, you know, she's not taking a chest voice, you're not belting the top notes. So this is why it keeps that consistency and the kind of delivery that also gives it that eerie sound, because it's not somebody shouting at you.
Let's play a little game and have fun. Ding dong, where is it you've gone to? Do you think you've won? Our game of hide and seek is just...
Again, this note here, because we are zoomed in, we can see it's under the line here, the G sharp 4. But if you were to zoom out, that would look like it might be on the line. And, you know, you'd see straight away that there's another note here that's under, another note here that's under. You know, pretty much bang on here. Just to point out, we are zoomed in here. So this accuracy is just off the charts, considering that it's a cappella and she doesn't have a reference point for these notes. She's just literally singing her intervals where she thinks these notes are. And of course, they're spot on.
Your footsteps following lovely always. I can hear your sharp breath
Now, when I said about the voice naturally drifting in pitch, we are getting a sense of that now, where we've been quite consistently sharp of where we were before, being slightly flat. So that's what I mean. She'll take you on a journey of pitch, but you won't notice it. And this is why, again, listening to this, and if you thought it was pitch corrected, not only is it not pitch corrected, but our starting point of pitch has just drifted ever so slightly flat and then ever so slightly sharp, but the intervals to that point of reference have been perfect. So again, the ear doesn't pick this up. It's only when we look in this detail that we will be able to see it. I mean, if we're listening to this, which we are, when we go back, we can see again, now we've drifted sharp, but we've maintained our intervals perfectly. And when we then almost snap back onto pitch perfectly, you can't tell. The ear does not pick this up. Because it's a natural voice that's maintaining its intervals perfectly, it's amazing how much variation you get in a great voice that you don't pick up on, to the point where obviously this request was somebody asking me whether it was pitch corrected because they weren't sure. So this is, a great, indication of what the ear listens to in a voice. It doesn't look at something and look at lines. It just listens to it. And obviously somebody thought that this was so perfect that maybe it was manipulated, but then we can see it's not perfect at all, but it sounds it, which is the whole point that I make about all of the videos when we're looking at pitch correction and auto-tune. But now that we're looking at it in this kind of detail, maybe you can now hear that, oh yeah, that was a little bit flat, but this is it, because it's looking at something and listening to something are two totally different things. This is now engaging the technical part of our brains we're analyzing. So it means that we're now hearing this in a different context. If you do away with this and don't look at the notes that are going on, you're now taking in that information and taking in the sound more creatively. You're having an emotional response to it, not an analytical response to it, because you don't get to decide how you feel about something because you just feel it. You can't have that conscious mind getting involved and listening to a great singer and then at the end thinking, okay, I'm now going to decide how that's affected me emotionally. That's not the part of brain that works when you're listening to music and, appreciating any art really. But when you start analyzing things, now we're engaging that conscious part of our brain that's doing away with emotional responses, and we're now looking at, finite pitches here, for example, finite frequencies. So we're now listening to it in that context, and this is why it might sound a little bit different when we're looking at it at the same time. Another point just before we finish, that this is a viral video that has happened genuinely. When I say that, I mean this is a genuine performance of this. It's not been edited. This was what was being sung when Lauren was sat on that step and stomping her feet. And there have been plenty of other videos that have gone viral where people haven't done it like this, where they've recorded it in the studio. And in this case, they would have recorded it in the studio, then applied reverb to their voice and overdubbed their pitch corrected vocal to make it sound, more accurate than it was when they were singing it. So, I see so many videos like that, and also guitarists that aren't actually playing what they're supposed to be playing, but generally it's people playing things that are really technical, but they're not actually doing it. Again, recorded it in the studio, stuck all the notes together, and then they're pretending to do it, and everyone who doesn't play guitar, and even those that do play guitar, can't really spot it. But that's what I'm here for, to point out people that are actually doing this and other people that aren't doing it. Again, I'm just going to tell it how I see it and back it up with objective data like we do have here on screen. So anyway, thank you guys for requesting this particular video for me to take a look at. As always, let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Keep the suggestions for future analysis videos coming as well. And if you did enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and I'll catch you guys at the next one. Rock!